Distinguished colleagues, before us on the podium is the nominee from Kano State, Major General Bashir Magashi, retired. Let me, on behalf of distinguished senators, my colleague, welcome you to the Senate chambers. And we already have your CV, but you can still emphasize and highlight any issues that you think need to be noted by the senators for the purpose of this screening exercise. You may as well talk to issues that are not reflected in your CV if you think they are also important for the Senate to note. Once again, you are welcome and you can address the Senate.
Thank you, sir. The President of the Senate, the principal officers, distinguished senators, I stand before you, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to avail myself for the screening exercise as a nominated or a nominee for the ministerial appointment in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am aware that it is your responsibility here to confirm or otherwise on my nomination. I pray that I will be considered. Thank you very much, and I will proceed.
Senator Bashir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, let me say before I ask my question that the nominee before us today is someone I know very well, a distinguished leader, one of the leaders in Kano, who had served this country in various capacities. He was a ministry administrator. We cherish him very well as our leader, as one of our leaders in Kano. And he has done very well to take Kano to where it is right now. You did very well, nominee. The question I want to ask you, I don't want you to elaborate. Don't say much about it. What I want you to say is either yes or no. What you did for us in Kano and other parts of the country, how you served with merit. Once you are able to be confirmed by this August Senate, and you become a minister of the Federal Republic, will you do the same thing? My answer, I don't want you to elaborate, just say yes or no. By time you want to give the answer.
Spin doctor.
Thank you, Nominee.
Okay.
DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Signal Chair. First, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the nominee for Mr. President deeming you fit to be nominated to serve as a member of the Federal Executive Council. I've had the opportunity to go through your CV. It's a very, very rich one, indeed. You know, General, that one of the biggest problems we face in this country today is that of insecurity. You will also recall that before Mr. President took office in 2015, most of the Northeast was ravaged and indeed taken over by Boko Haram. But the President, drawing from his experience as a retired general, was able to wipe out, for the most part, indeed, or at the very least, degraded the capacity of Boko Haram. But there's been some resurgence of late. Not only is it resurgence of Boko Haram, but even insecurities in that state, including banditry in most of the states. Now, my question now is this. As a former general, should you find yourself privileged? What? As a general, as a retired general, should you find yourself privileged to serve in the defense ministry? What advice or what would you do differently? What would you do differently than what the current or the former occupant of the office did while he was Minister of Defense? Thank you very much.
Senate Leader.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I personally would be doing hide and seek with my colleagues without, first of all, revealing my own relationship with the nominee. If this place were a court of law, I think I would just recuse myself and not be part of the judgment. But it was not a court of law. This is a place where we tell the truth to each other so that we come to some understanding and a common position on issues. The nominee before you was, and I say is, partly responsible by being among you here. He is partly responsible by being among you here. I was a humble lecturer in Ahmadu Bello University in 1990 when he was appointed military administrator or military governor of Sokoto State, at that time my state, and he forced me out of the university and appointed me as a commissioner of agriculture. I had no other calling at that time than academic work. But since then, as my fate, he turned my fate, and later on, I found myself in politics. So for me, my distinguished colleagues, it's now a time for me to pay back. Yes. my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, here before you is an accomplished general and an infantry general and a good man. This is a man who has fought in the Civil War and commanded so many formations, was the commander of the Brigade of Guards, was commander of the 2nd Division, led the ECOMOG team to Liberia, did so many other military assignments, and has a lot of merit. So, without much, then you will look at his CV, you will affirm the position that I am taking. So, my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, this is a candidate, this is a nominee, and one of the best that the President has nominated to join his cabinet. Therefore, I would urge my colleagues, without any prejudice to anything anybody might want to say, to please ask my friend and general to bow and leave the chamber.
My name is Oji Uzokalo. I represent good people of Abia North. General, how will you handle the issue of I will come to the motion. It's an appeal, it's not a motion. Up and order. I still do my work at chief whip. As an experienced general who is very, very competent, if you are put in the Ministry of Defense, how are you going to reduce the infighting among security chiefs? Because it's also diminishing the result we could have been gotten to be able to fight insecurity in Nigeria. Because the security chiefs, you are not hearing me? Not so much. As a general, how would the rivalry between service chiefs, because they are fighting among themselves. It's true. They are disagreeing among themselves. Maybe I should use that language. How are you going to settle that matter? And also as a lawyer, which you are, how will your relationship between the judiciary and the military is going to be? Because I know you are a very competent lawyer also. I've encountered you as a lawyer in many places. So, how are you going to handle the issue of insecurity in Nigeria? Because if God permits, and you are given Ministry of Defense, how can you coordinate the services totally and advise Mr. President rightly to be able to solve this problem? Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can respond to the questions, please. Respond to the questions.
Let me start from the last question raised by Senator Ojikano, my distinguished senator. What I can say right now is to believe that the Nigerian military is operating under the Defense Pact and the enabling laws that govern the services. I may need to study that and be able to make my own contributions. But as you rightly said, and it's common knowledge to all of us, that the cooperation between the service chiefs, all their relationships, is not very cordial. I put that in quote. My answer to this is very simple. The creation of the relationship has been in existence since the creation of the office of the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff. In the process, all our operations that we conducted internally and externally were governed by the hierarchy of command. And where the echelon is weak, probably the downwards will also be very weak, or will see the opportunity to capitalize on the errors of the top. I'm not saying this is happening now, but regards to the service chiefs, in my own view, we have come to a situation where you find that each commander or each service chief is trying to please the nation. And anytime one of the services or all the services were able to conduct an operation, you find radio coverage that the Air Force has done this, the Army has done that. Thank God we are not near the coast where we can say the Navy is also involved. If the Navy is around here, then the three services would have been in the same collision course. In this situation, which I serve as the ECOMOG commander, the NICON Nigerian Contingency Commander, we are only operating as an administrative unit overseeing the needs, the aspiration, the welfare of our troops in the combat zone. The apex commander, I wouldn't mind calling the name, my best commander in the field, General Olurin, was our field commander. He coordinates all the activities of the Senegalese army, the Liberian army, and all other ECOMOG countries that is under the ECOMOG. And he is the operational commander, and he does that all. Anything to do with the welfare and everything about the troops is entirely on the contingent commander of that operational, of that country. So we cater for our needs, we cater for everything. But in Nigeria today, there is what we call a command structure. That command structure is now seen as a weakness. The military is always ready to acknowledge performance, but we always don't want to be here that we have not performed. And I think the theater of war, we encourage it, we the civilians, because every day you find that one problem has arisen either from the northeast or from the central or from anywhere. And then you need troops to cover that area. We have almost disseminated all our forces. And I don't think the current structure is the true reflection of our manpower requirements in this country. We are only having divisions, probably by name, but I don't think they have the required manpower to manage. I am very surprised when you find operation be conducted single-handedly by a unit, by a service. What we do in operations is a combined operations. Right from the platoon commander to the war, to even the commitment of a field marshal, if need be, is always coordinated in accordance with the speed and actions of troops in the field. They cater for the reinforcement, they cater for the operations, they change places where there is a terrain that is rugged and you need only the infantry should go. Where you don't have facilities to go in the referent area, you employ the special forces, mainly from the combatant units. These combatant units will certainly undertake the training, the task that is given them by virtue of their training and expertise. That is how we conduct operations. But today, as you rightly said, Kanu, which I think is a common knowledge, I can accept that, the service chiefs are curious or are trying to express their capabilities to the people who don't know the operational concept of troops. But I assure you, looking at the concept, the Defense Act, the act that provided for all these things, I will assure you we will do our best to ensure a restructuring, whatever it can be possible for us to do, we will do it for the interest of the troops themselves, and then to secure our country properly with minimum cost and influence.
General, I would advise that you try to be concise, because this is a security thing and almost everybody here wants to ask a question or the other. So try to be concise, but of course address the questions so that you take as many questions as possible. You can continue with your response.
I think the question of Deputy Speaker, Senate President, is also in line with the first. And I think what I will do differently is to ensure that rules are obeyed procedures is followed, welfare is maintained, and every other thing that will make a troop to be happy and motivated to perform his role. I think that's how I go about your questions.
Well, ordinarily, maybe some of is again one new thing we are going to face. Maybe for those that will be here next time, I think when you take security people, some of the issues would be better discussed in closed session. I believe that from the answers already given by the general, we know his capacity. And I want to assume that the motion on ground that he takes a bow has already gotten a seconder. So is it the view of this Senate that he takes a bow and go? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You can take a bow.
Major General Magashi Bashir from Kano State takes a bow. The Senate seems impressed with his responses to the questions thrown at him. And with that, no more questions from the senators. Before we go into some of the questions, how he responded, here's a brief background of Major General Bashir Salihi Magashi. Although he's from Kano State, he is a former Sokoto governor. He was governor from 1990 to 1992, and he was retired along with other military chiefs in 1999. He was also a legal advisor for defunct All Nigeria's People's Party ANPP and the governorship candidate of the Democratic People's Party DPP in Kano State. Now, some of the questions were asked. He was asked by the Deputy President of the Senate if he is appointed as Defense Minister, what he would do differently. And then, despite the requests by the majority leader asking for him to take a bow and go without any questions, Senator Ojukawuzo Kalu asked him how he would reduce the fighting among security chiefs, suggesting, or he opined rather, that there was some disagreement among the service chiefs, and the Major General's responses were quite clear and satisfactory to the senators. He said that each service chief is trying to please the nation. He went further to say that the service chiefs are more interested in publicity for their tasks, and he doesn't think that is necessary, that issues of security shouldn't be that publicized. They should focus on carrying out their duties. He also questioned the lack of adequate manpower for the military.